Is anybody going to watch election coverage tonight? No?
I'm gonna go to sleep with a clear mind and then wake up and feel the impending doom.
So you're gonna get a good night's rest and face it in a rested mental state. Gosh, that's so smart and wise. I wish I could do that, but I don't even think I'm capable. Anybody else? No one's doing like a watch party? Emily says, yeah. So right, this time especially, the results could take many, many days. So it's not going to be this big reveal like most elections that I remember anyway, where we have a good sense. Your parents are having a party, Grace says. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, either way, right? Just, you know, celebrate another 4 years. Okay. And I know I did hear from some people who need to vote and may be voting, so or need to leave early to vote. That's all totally cool and expected and encouraged. Okay, so we turn our attention to discussing the first part of the assigned reading, Steve Allman's Against Football. And at first glance, I personally didn't immediately see how such a topic contributed to a course in philosophy and social justice. Now, some years later, it makes all of the sense to me, and I hope you will kind of reach that conclusion as well. That we have a lot to learn from sports and about sports from a book like this that's very critically examines this beloved pastime, right? So as we've done for a couple of the other books in this class, I have some things that I'd like to discuss as a large group, and I'll share with you tiny tidbits of talking points and little research tidbits about the philosophy of sport. And then I'll put you into groups to discuss chapter questions. So you got those questions. Make sure you can access those, of course, like usual. All right. Let's see here. So now I'd like to hear from every single person attending today. What sports, I just need like a baseline, like a background on some people, kind of read the room a little bit. And I want to know, what sports did you personally play, or did some family members in your household play? And if you're able to share, what were some of the reasons for participating, or some of the reasons for not participating, or stopping at some point, or refusing? Okay. Let me pull everyone up. So let's start. I'm just gonna kind of randomly go around here. Michaela, tell me about sports and you.
So in high school, I played softball all 4 years. And then my last year, my senior year, I played basketball. Now, I stopped playing basketball for a while because in middle school, I tore my ACL, and I just wanted to focus mainly on softball.
Okay. And was that a choice, like, and if you feel like divulging, like, could you have pushed through that and sort of kept playing? Or did you not really have a choice based on medical advice?
I could have pushed through it and done it. I'll admit, I was kind of gun shy going back on the court, just thinking about doing that, because that's how I tore my ACL, was from basketball. But I don't know, I played softball most of my life, and I really wanted to try to play softball in college. And then once I was able to get a commitment, I decided to go back and play basketball again for my last year.
All right, cool. And in terms of like watching sports with your family, were there particular ones that your family regularly spectated together or not together?
Football, definitely football.
Okay. Okay, so this book is right up your alley.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
Okay, cool. And any preliminary thoughts on like, what you personally get out of these things?
I would say more enjoyment. I don't like the big tackles though. Like I think that's wrong. I like chuck people. I just like rooting for the team I like, which is the New England Patriots. I'm a big Patriot fan. So
Okay. Cool. Haley.
I played tennis for 3 years of high school because we couldn't play for our senior year because of COVID. And my twin sister also played, but we really only played because we knew it wasn't going to be that difficult and it wasn't going to, like, it's not a big injury sport or anything like that. And we didn't want to take gym class. If you played a sport, you didn't have to take gym class for any year or any semester in high school. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not every high school is like that, but I've heard of
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
That's a big benefit. How about like watching sports?
Yeah, my family watches football too. My family watches a lot of Ohio State football.
Okay. Do you watch with them?
Sometimes I watch, but I don't really get it that much. I just don't care to learn.
Okay. So you're there, spending time with them, but you're maybe
Yeah.
not as into the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Josie?
I've never really played sports at all. And my family doesn't even watch sports really. The closest thing to a sport that we do, my brother's in marching band. That's about it.
And that's pretty physically demanding.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like it should be a sport. Most people, I'm guessing, would not call it a sport.
Yeah.
Okay. And do any reasons come to mind as to why you didn't get involved, or you just never felt any pressure whatsoever?
I just never felt interested in it.
Mhm.
Like it was something I wanted to do, that's all.
Okay, cool. All right, Vanessa?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Just looking at the questions on the screen. Yeah, your personal background with sports or watching sports.
So I played a lot of sports in high school. I ran track and I cheered and I played volleyball and then I water skied.
Wow.
And then my dad played baseball a long time ago and a little bit of football. And I don't know, I just really liked all of the sports. Volleyball is probably the one that I miss the most. And then I do acrobatics and tumbling here.
Right.
But yeah, volleyball is probably the one that I miss the most. And my dad watched football a lot whenever I was little, so I watched football a lot. But now, as I've grown up, I watch basketball a lot more on TV, even if it's just myself.
Okay.
Because I enjoy watching it a little bit more than, and NBA. I like watching it a little bit more than football. But I do really like watching football, just more basketball.
Okay. Cool. Samantha, are you doing okay, Samantha? I'm worried about you.
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Just a fun little accident weekend.
Don't look at any bright lights.
Okay.
So,
in high school, I was a cheerleader and I was on the golf team.
okay. And which one did you enjoy more?
Definitely cheerleading.
Why?
I grew up doing it. I did it since I was 5, and I just kept doing it all the way till my senior year.
Okay. And would you say it had something to do with the group aspect of it and the teamwork required?
Yeah, all my friends did it, so it meant I got to spend more time with them on Friday nights. It was just really fun.
Okay. Cool. Mandolin?
I didn't play any sports. Well, I tried to because my dad really wanted me to be like extracurricularly involved. I tried to play basketball and volleyball and it was horrible. I was so bad. It was laughable. I've always had really bad coordination. I've just never excelled at that. So
Right here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He
Don't worry.
just settled for me
We're
like
out there.
music. So yeah, my dad likes sports. He watches football. He's been really into golf though recently, which is really boring to watch in my opinion. I never liked watching sports. They never interested me. I've been dragged along to like some Super Bowl parties and I find them really scary because everyone is just yelling. I usually just eat the food and kind of chill in the other room. But yeah, never been that interested.
Now at least they have these halftime parties that are epic concerts.
Yeah.
You could just see it as, a planned conference, big name conference where there happens to be some football going on.
True.
You just kind of flip that in your head a little bit. Let's see. Hayden.
I played basketball once in the 5th grade and I hated it. But other than that, I've always been in band, but my brother does like wrestling and football and he did cross country this year.
Uh-huh. And what about watching stuff?
I watched the football games when I was in band. Dad watches football, but I don't. They watch basketball and stuff, but I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, we can't sort of pretend to be interested in things for very long. So
okay.
We like what we like.
Okay, listen. Unpopular opinion, but basketball is the most boring sport known to man. It's disgusting. Okay. It was the worst thing I ever had to do in band.
So disgusting is a really specific word. How is it? I mean, and we don't have to like go super into this, but you've piqued my curiosity. So like, how is it disgusting specifically?
I don't know. I just hate it. They stop the game every 4 seconds and it gives me a headache. I don't know.
Okay. Is there anything like on the Olympics that you like to watch potentially?
I do actually like ice skating.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe more performative, less team-oriented sports are your more up your alley.
Yeah.
See, you're not anti-sport, broad sense.
I am just anti-basketball.
There you go.
Football's fine. Basketball's awful.
Interesting. Wow. Basketball's awful. Football is fine.
I mean, football's dangerous. Don't get me wrong. I kind of like hate it for that, but it's fun to watch.
Okay.
A kid actually died on our field once.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like it's a dangerous sport.
Okay. So yeah, so this book will have something for you as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did I call on Grace?
No, not yet.
No. Let's hear it.
My family is like a big sports family. I have 3 other siblings and we're all around the same age, so we kind of like grew up being active and stuff like that. My dad played football, basketball, and baseball in high school, and then my brother plays football, lacrosse, and he used to wrestle and he did baseball. And me and my sister are a year apart, and we played, like I played softball here at West Lib. We played softball together throughout high school, and then in middle school we both did basketball, lacrosse, what is it called, like shot put
in track and field.
Yeah
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then my little sister does horseback riding, or she did. So we all, like, I love sports. I love playing sports, and we watch sports all the time. We're like huge Steelers people.
Okay.
When it comes to football.
And have you gone to games in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, my grandma has season passes, and then
Sweet. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So my dad takes her tickets all the time, and he'll like switch off taking one of the kids every time to the games.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a big range of stuff that you guys are into. It's very cool. Riley?
In middle school, I cheered and I did track and I played softball. And
That's a
but in
lot.
high school, yeah. Oh, I also did volleyball too. But when I got to high school, I just cheered.
Okay.
And in my family, we're not really the biggest sports fans, but my grandpa does like to watch some basketball and football. So I'll occasionally watch it with him.
Okay. Gotcha. Emily?
In middle school, I did softball and basketball. And when I was younger, up until my senior year of high school, I did soccer. So I played it for about 14 years. And then I did cheering in high school, band, track. I think that's pretty much all the sports that I did. And then I have 3 siblings, a sister and 2 brothers, and they all did soccer as well. And my oldest brother did wrestling. And my family's not huge into sports, but my dad really likes to watch hockey, and he likes to watch like the NASCAR racing.
Oh, neat.
And I think he likes football too, but I like watching the NASCAR racing with him, but I'm not huge in sports.
NASCAR is one of those that shows up frequently on lists of things that may or may not actually be sports. And it's one of those hotly debated subjects. So
Yeah, all you do is drive a car.
still very exciting to watch either way.
Yeah, I like watching that.
Thanks. Jonathan?
I was in band. I didn't do any like, I guess, traditional sports. I played soccer in middle school, but that was short-lived. We watch a lot of hockey, lots of hockey, and soccer. Not really into football. My mom likes baseball a lot, the Pirates and the Cardinals. The only time we really watch football is when Ohio State plays the team up north. Other than that, though, in the Super Bowl, just for commercials, I guess. We don't really watch anything else.
And the halftime show.
Yeah, and the halftime show.
What's your favorite hockey team?
Penguins, definitely.
Okay. We watch hockey. My husband's from Philly. Don't hate me.
I don't hate you.
Thank you.
There's still time for him to become a Pens fan.
It's funny because now we've been here 11 years, and that's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, I don't. Yeah, I would have, 5 years ago said no, that's not going to happen. But now I don't know. It's weird to watch this very slow transformation.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hannah.
So when I was younger, like in elementary school and middle school, I played tennis, softball, and I did cheerleading for a while too. It was mostly all at the same time, just different days. I hated all of it. It was miserable.
No, why do it?
Yeah, my parents made me do it. My mom wanted me to be in stuff.
Okay.
Specifically hated cheerleading the most. The softball was like okay, but they called me the cheerless leader because I never smiled. So I'd be out there, I did the blank face just the whole time. But like when I got older, I started band through middle school, high school, and I'm still in it now, but that's all I've done up until this point. My dad played football in high school and middle school. He still likes to watch it now and stuff. He's really into it. He's a big WVU fan. My grandparents, not as much, because I don't really watch sports or anything. I mean, I like WWE. Like, I like wrestling. I like pro wrestling. I know it's fake, but I like to watch it.
Gladiator performance aspect. It's very...
Yeah. I enjoy how silly it is.
Okay.
And so I like to watch it. But my grandparents, like my grandpa likes to watch golf. He likes to golf all the time. And they all watch NASCAR and stuff like that, but that's not really a sport. So that's really all that it is in my
Yeah,
family.
it's debatable. Debatable.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Emily.
I did competitive cheer for 12 years. I had to stop for 2 years due to injury, but I loved it so much I came back here and did acro. And then, so the doctor told me I was allowed as long as I didn't tumble.
Got it.
My sister plays 3 sports, and my dad was a really big baseball player in college and after. So we do watch a good bit of baseball, but I'd say football's mostly in our family because I have a huge family and we have Super Bowl watch parties. We do World Series watch parties, and I have like all boy cousins that are around my age. So like we all like bet on it and stuff. So we're really big involved in watching all of that. I also swam for like 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big range of, that's neat. Do you have a sense that football is more of a dude thing to spectate?
They made me think it for years that it was, because I would always, like, I learned it solely for the fact to tell them I knew what it was, because they told me I was a girl and I shouldn't know what football is, or I didn't know any of the rules. So I literally learned everything just so I could argue with them about it.
Show them, like,
yeah,
know the ins and outs, same as you. Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much did it to tell them.
All right, Bailey.
I, throughout my life, I've done tumbling, softball, swimming, basketball, and then in high school specifically, taekwondo, and then high school, I kept with taekwondo, then cross country, track, swimming, and then I picked up Hapkido somewhere along the way. And my senior year, I tried to do tennis, and then COVID said no.
Okay,
so
so you're another that's like polymorphing, multi-sport. You like to try new things.
Yeah.
So for all of you, so this is a group with a lot of athletes and your honor students. Were those things reasonably compatible in high school, would you say? Go ahead, Bailey.
I stopped softball in 7th or 8th grade because like the coaches were just really mean, and I'm not a team sport person. I just like doing my own thing. And like it was mostly everybody was comparing me to my mom, and I was just really sick of being really compared to my mom because my mom was really big in softball, basketball, and volleyball, and that's what she did here. And I came here not really wanting to do that. But running and martial arts were my big one.
Okay. Felt more manageable.
And my family is a football family. Go Steelers, I guess. And mom will sometimes like to go watch baseball.
Okay. Cool. Have you been to Pirates games?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the beautiful stadium. So just
actually our band played the Star Spangled Banner for a Pirates game.
There you go. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. But so now I want to ask everyone though, like for those of you who did sports in high school, was there ever a point where it was kind of like you were too busy, you felt dangerously busy, or that you maybe had to choose between sports commitments and having good grades? Or were those things pretty compatible? Anybody?
It was never really grades, but socially, it really kicked my butt. It was kind of miserable.
Wow, miserable. That's a strong word.
I found that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michaela.
I found that I had a lot of late nights, especially with basketball, because it's in like the dead center of your evening. So I never had enough time to actually start my homework. whenever I got home, but then I had to wait till like 8 o'clock to actually start to do it. And I found that I'd go to bed around like 1 or 2 o'clock every night and then have to wake up at 6 in the morning.
Ugh. That's rough. Yeah. It's a certain type of training, I suppose, for possibly for later education, but that's hard. Like it's a big commitment. All right, let's talk about high school a little more here. So how were football players regarded or even treated at your high school? And then the follow-up to that, and I'll just sort of take volunteers for this one, I think, unless nobody volunteers, and then I'll just call on people. But the follow-up to that is like, were other athletes of other sports treated similarly to the way that you saw football players being treated? Or for that matter, other student groups with, you know, heavy commitments, things like band or debate or theater, things like that. So I'll take volunteers on that one, but someone has to volunteer.
I can talk about that actually. It was a big thing at my high school. So basically, like the football kids were definitely on top of the pyramid at my school. Like they could get away with anything all the time. Like they basically didn't really have to try. I had a lot of them in my classes. I knew a lot of them, and they would just sit back and do nothing in class. They would never turn anything in, and somehow they would still continue on. Like, and I even know them. They would tell me personally that they never really like tried that hard, or like they just didn't really understand any of the stuff that was going on, but they still passed. And like it was just very obvious that they got away with a lot of things. It wasn't even just the football kids though. Like I would say any of the athletes, because we had like a mix up at one point with our cheerleaders because they got caught. I can't remember what it was, something that they shouldn't have been doing on one of their trips, and they all like went off scot-free. Like everyone at school knew about it, and they said there was going to be a punishment of some sort, but nothing ever happened. Same thing happens with the football kids. You'll hear about stuff happening and then no punishments. But if something happens in the band world, like to us, like one kid will get caught. One kid will do something not even in like a band situation, outside of it, and we won't even know who it is. It'll be like a freshman or something, and then the older kids would all find out about it, and the director there'd be like huge issues. The whole school, like the principal would come down. We weren't allowed to go to games and stuff like that because of something so small that we didn't even know about. And then the whole team will do a mess up for like football or something, and they won't get in trouble.
Yeah, so double standards, different people being held to different standards. I feel like I've heard this type of thing before. Emily Madison?
At our school, a lot of the like funding of certain things went to the football players. Like they got a whole new field and they got new helmets every year, and they weren't good. They won maybe one game a year every year I was there. But then you had the softball team who was actually pretty decent, and they needed they don't even have a fence. Like they needed a fence, and they would not give it to them because they said we didn't have any money.
Wow. And do you happen to know if it was like private funding, like some big donor supplied the football team with helmets, or not that really matters for something like this, but.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I know we had extra money because our principal asked like the leaders of the school, we were called, we were like a group, what they should do with it. And I think it ended up going towards like some of the football team stuff, even though we all said that we need the baseball field needed new dirt and like all of this stuff, but they gave it to the football team, and all of us are really mad. So it wasn't our decision. But then they told us they were broke after they used the money. So we were all kind of upset because we knew it went to the football team, but they wouldn't tell us it went to the football team. But some of the football players knew that that's where it went
to. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
There was a really big deal of just attention, really, of like yearbook. For the spring sports, just sports in general, because Central was a really huge sports school. They went through all the spring sports, and even though we did, because of COVID, it was all canceled, but they went through and they put every senior got a recognition in their sports. But the students self-planned a fundraiser for theater, and it was a huge deal, and that didn't even make the yearbook, and that actually happened, and it didn't even make the yearbook.
Right. So just the recognition and notoriety.
Yeah, not that I'm like hurt by that or anything as the theater president, but
it doesn't feel good, right? Like it just shows at various levels what is valued more in terms of public recognition and prestige and just awareness, right? Like we care more about sports and football in particular at the top of a pyramid.
We care more about the sports that didn't even happen than a fundraiser that our students did by themselves.
Or in sports, we care more about the team that doesn't even win very much or necessarily work well or something than, you know, a woman's team that performs really well and is like winning championships and stuff.
Yeah. Or the fact like the football players don't have to pay for anything, any trips, nothing. The cheerleaders get lumped into it too. But we had to pay for our own costumes, expensive costumes for our own shows because we didn't have the funding for costumes.
Yeah. And, you know, and each time this topic is raised, you honors freshmen have many stories that are rage-inducing. So, anybody else? Did I miss anybody from, because I can't see the chat either when I'm in share screen mode.
Our football players were treated really highly, but our basketball players were treated a lot higher than our football players.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that.
But
yeah,
I guess because I come from a really small school, like I graduated with 55 kids, so everybody plays multiple sports. So like almost the entire football team plays basketball too, except for like the huge linemen. They don't really play basketball. They wrestle.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so that undoubtedly changes things. You have a higher proportion of upperclassmen who are athletes and they're playing more than one sport. It takes on a different kind of interconnectedness and meaning, I think. I'm guessing. Is that kind of true, Vanessa?
Yeah. Yeah. The girls' sports didn't really get enough recognition as they should.
Okay.
Especially so not our cheer team.
Gender disparity there.
Yeah, especially not our cheer team, because this was the first year that we competed. And like we went to 2 different state competitions and like we didn't really get like the same treatment as everybody else got, like all the boys get. And our girls track team's really good, and we had girls go to state every single year and we won districts and stuff, and they just like they didn't make a big deal out of it like they do for basketball.
Okay. Yeah, and you kind of wonder, you know, and this is extremely widespread. So the things that you're saying are reported over and over. They're very much the norm in American high schools. And so you wonder if there couldn't be some kind of, you know, council of community members or people or school administrators, you know, kind of paying attention to that situation, right? And monitoring for inequity and preferential treatment and, you know, other problems. I don't know. It seems to be a pretty standard situation that people need to look at. Okay, good. So we're moving along here. Let me shrink things down a little bit. So very briefly, I want to think about the nature of sport and put things in perspective about our connection to sport, how far back in history it seems to go, and what different benefits surely exist of doing sports, of watching sports. Okay. So what even is sport, right? And we mentioned that like some things are currently debated as to whether or not they qualify as sports. So there are different criteria that people use. There's not a universal definition. Even in the Olympics, sports can kind of come and go or remain controversial in their presence in the Olympics. So it's complicated, but this is just you can read from the Oxford Dictionary. An activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. So there's something kind of specific there that implies the importance of spectators as vital members of the event in order, that's like inherent to the definition of something being a sport. And then the example from the Oxford Dictionary was team sports such as baseball and soccer, just sort of classic and quintessential examples of sport, right? And looking to philosophers, and especially philosophers who write about the philosophy of sport, different writers are aware of multiple definitions based on the huge variety that exists among different sport activities. And sometimes it's hard to see much common ground between these different activities, and yet they would all be labeled as sports. Take a look at, let's see here, this one definition from a philosopher named Bernard Suits, who in one of his articles wrote that sport consists of competitive events involving a variety of physical, usually in combination with other human skills, where the superior participant is judged to have exhibited those skills in a superior way. So in this definition, there's some key points, both in the definition and then in his writings to explain his philosophy of sport. So first, he's distinguishing between things that are refereed games and things that are judged performances. So for example, so basketball and figure skating are very different by nature, but they are both sports. One it has a performance nature, and one has sort of a game nature to it. But they both have rules and objectives, right? And importantly, they can both be externally evaluated, either by referees or judges in the case of figure skating. And so this sense here, again, embedded in the definition of sport is this idea that outside observers and outside evaluators are crucial to what makes it a sport, right? That other people are watching. And so they become a sort of participant in that event. And then I want to also note the built-in reference here to superiority or excellence in the definition of sport from Suits. And sure enough, when we're watching sports, our minds easily think of something like superiority or excellence. Well, okay, I'm already saying too much, but think about even watching a kid's Little League baseball game, right? Part of the excitement is thinking about kids who show early evidence of excellence, of talent, of being superior to other players their age and their level, right? So at some point, I want to think more about that and explore whether that tendency among spectators is a positive attribute that serves us in some way, or a flaw in human nature. Okay. So to back up into ancient history, and without going into huge detail, of course, sports have been around for a really long time, and they've served different functions. And I hope that some of these points will become relevant as we talk our way through Against Football. So, Plato and Aristotle wrote about sport and sporting events. Individual and team events were an important part of public life and community in Greek society. And to those ancient philosophers, sport was a key component of one's education, and by extension, the fullest realization of humanity and human flourishing, right, depended on participation in sports, the practicing of sports. So then moving forward a bit, in ancient Rome, we know that athletic contests were considered to be like training for warriors and even preparation for war. Which, you know, there's, again, that's gonna come up when we talk about football throughout this reading, and how sort of we're now far from that type of thinking, and yet also maybe in a way nothing has changed. We're not so far as we think. But why do people continue to do sport today? So if it's not, you know, we're not playing Little League baseball to be a better soldier one day to defend our country, like why do we do that? Why do we kind of push millions of kids every year into doing a sport? And we're very drawn to it, right? So it's a pretty common thing, and our society is all behind that right now and has been for a long time. I was able to find some benefits, both. Well, of course, there's a huge documentation of physical benefits of physical activity, and you get more physical activity from doing sports. So that's kind of a no-brainer. But there are numerous psych studies that suggest mental health benefits to both playing and watching sports. And some of these findings suggested, and they had very intricate studies that were pretty impressive, to try to control for different factors, look at, you know, people who do sports but versus groups who do not, or who are not involved. And basically the findings suggest that engaging in sports boosts a person's mood, suppresses loneliness, which makes a lot of sense. There's a sense of community and shared experiences. And then also other studies suggest that both watching and playing sports can help improve concentration and resilience, right? Resilience being in the education world something that we've referred to as grit, right? So, you know, seeing your team lose, which is a normal part of participating in sports, helps cultivate a sense of resilience in an individual, which I thought was really interesting. And then looking at studies of children and physical benefits, studies find additional kind of personal benefits, such as teamwork, the development of leadership skills, cognitive benefits, pertaining even to like memory and focus, as a result of participating in youth sports programs. Again, which I found pretty neat. And all of that sounds pretty great, right? Like, what's not to love? What is there to go after here, right? Well, like so many things in this class, you know, we want to take something sort of ordinary right in front of us, and I guess point out the ways in which everything is really terrible, or there are also some terrible things going on associated with it. That's what it felt like to me reading Steve Almond's book anyway. And sure enough, he has a friend that he mentions in the book, who says to him after learning about the project, "Oh, Steve, don't take this away from me. You're not going to take this away from me, are you?" Meaning, like, you're not going to chip away at my unfettered, untroubled devotion to football and appreciation and enjoyment of football, right? But of course, that's exactly what Steve Almond is going to do. And then, you know, as Steve Almond will challenge, on the surface, sporting events provide much needed revenue for communities and neighborhoods, and spectators spend lots of money that can help prop up local economies. So there seem to be many collective and personal benefits overall, right? Okay, so that brings us to the preface here. So let's talk about a couple of these a little bit, and then I will put you in breakout rooms to discuss the chapter questions. Okay, so first question, thinking about the preface, what is Steve Almond's internal relationship with football? Like, as best you can tell as a reader at this point. Anybody?
I think, like, especially with his dad really liking football and him growing up around it, he really likes it, and he talks about it in the beginning too. He's like, he enjoys football and everything, but he knows there's problems with it. Like, he knows there's issues that could even like be brought to racial issues. There's issues with just the fundamentals of it as well.
Okay, so it's there's kind of this nagging problem for him. He loves it, but he's worried that it's not perfect. Okay. What is the purpose of his book, which he tells us essentially? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
He's trying to see what football for what it truly is.
Yes.
Sorry, I had my book open. That was just the quote that I had.
Yes. Yeah. So he first wants to expose, he wants to drop some truth about football, this game that many people want to just love in a guilt-free way. Kind of reminds me of last book. Many people want to just enjoy eating meat in a guilt-free way without, and they want to just sort of shield themselves from certain truths, possibly. And once again, you know, much of being a successful or content human is a careful process of not knowing. Okay. And then he says, oh, I can't find it. Essentially, like, he sees it as his job, on page 6. This little book is a manifesto. Its job is to be full of obnoxious opinions. For example, I happen to believe that our allegiance to football legitimizes and even fosters within us a tolerance for violence, greed, racism, and homophobia. Boom. Okay. And then last question before I put you into groups. Why do you think he reaches this point early in this little preface to the book where he refers to it, his devotion to football, as not normal? Like, what is he referring to that he's already stated in the preface?
The fact that he finds joy in finding people like they're getting hurt, and he's finding joy in people getting hurt, and like he feels like there's something wrong with that. There has to be something wrong with that.
Yeah, so if you watch football, you're gonna see people get hurt. And he's suggesting that he is one of those watchers that kind of maybe got a little excited every time that happened, right? And we can possibly relate as spectators of other sports too. So hockey is a game where in North American hockey, people fight, right? And, you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't kind of get excited when that happened. Or, you know, I don't know what else to call it. There is enjoyment at watching people fight, and then someone has like blood coming out of their face or their nose or something. And as normal or usual as that is, as normalized, Steve Almond is telling us that that is not normal or should not be normal. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, and now I can see a bunch of chat. So you can all take a look at that. Yeah, so the appeal of school fights, right? And why, like in movies and then in real school fights, in middle school and high school, like kids crowd around that in a classic version. Maybe that's changing, or that goes through different sort of waves of popularity. But we can all kind of imagine that image as being typical in some way, even if it's not right.
Would it be similar to say like when you can't look away from a car crash?
I don't know. My understanding of the psychology of reactions to disasters or things like accidents, I'm not personally sure how similar or different that is to being a spectator of a rough and violent sport, right? Because my understanding of the psychology of watching horrible things happen by accident to people is that like part of being drawn to that is actually a desire to feel safe yourself and look for ways that can't be you, that can't happen to you, something like that. And that's the kind of kernel of the morbid curiosity. And so by looking closely, you're also making a wall of distance. On the other hand, my understanding of the psychology of being a spectator for things like football or hockey or wrestling or mixed martial arts is kind of the opposite in a way, right? You're looking and you're kind of fantasizing on some more or less concrete level about you doing some of those things. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So I'm not sure. I mean, undoubtedly, people in those types of research areas could talk more about similarities and differences. But I do think they activate different needs within people who see those things, right? One being to feel kind of safe, and one, wanting to do daring, bold, violent things, but being like most people, which is to say unable to do that successfully in reality, right? So you watch these athletes do it out on the field. Okay, that's my, very superficial 2 cents on it, since I'm not very immersed in those studies. Okay, so let's see. Let me do this. I will put you in your groups, and then I may need to adjust a tiny bit because I know a couple of you have to leave to go vote shortly. So let me do the groups first, and then I'll check in on you. But at this point, you should be looking at the chapter questions that I sent you. Okay. So let's do.
Working in the factories all day, you probably weren't happy, and it's probably a good way to like release your anger.
It's like a lot of pent up frustration.
Yeah.
Where this was. Number 4.
Angles of the cameras like made it more interesting and everything like that.
Yeah. Thing that could help keep it popular is how it says football is restricted to weekend afternoons in the autumn. Like, if it was all year round, people wouldn't get as excited for like the season.
The timing aspect.
Yeah.
And not sort of saturating fan year round, but like making it more special with a special season. That makes sense.
Ready to go to chapter 2. I think
is going to show up for training camp is because that fact plugs into a system I understand. Something to me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like they're not going to spend the time to learn about like real world issues. They're going to learn about football because that's what they are interested in. Okay. Ready to move on to chapter 2?
Sounds good. I do like the how much time do Americans spend thinking about football as opposed to thinking about God.
Oh yeah. That one was like, it made me think. I was like, yeah, that's true. It's like a 5-to-1 ratio of how many people actually go to church versus football.
Okay, found end zone.
End zone. Oh, that one was about like he found it in like the library and he was surprised that he found it there.
And what did he learn?
So for the next chapter, it was something like it was with his spine. Okay, it was like a fracture of his vertebrae. Did he die? I don't know if he died.
He got paralyzed or something, like his spine got injured, I think.
Yeah.
And he said he wasn't really worried about him. He was worried that since a star player got hurt, that they would they would start like putting limits on football and stuff.
Oh yeah.
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 That's a key observation, right?
Yeah.
That he's immediately more worried about what this could mean for his beloved sport.
Football.
Yeah, he said he was worried about it being outlawed.
Because of the famous person. People really get hurt during football games, like seriously injured.
Yeah, like concussions, and they talked about how if you sustain a bunch of head injuries, even if they're minimal, you're going to have long-term traumatic
issues. Yeah.
Like, they were talking about players who have symptoms of early dementia and stuff, like the guy forgetting that his daughter was playing soccer or something, and he got lost.
And they didn't really, I guess, have a lot of time for the kids, so they kind of just battled each other out.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that they tried to make like one-on-one time, but they still like always like wanted more attention.
Like they competed for attention.
Okay, So I listened in on all of you in a spot check kind of way. So I'm just gonna go through and pick just a couple of these per chapter. Yes, Emily, you already contacted me, so you're good if you need to go vote. So yeah, so before our break, let's hit just a couple of these. I'm interested in chapter 1, question 3, and his reasoning at the bottom of page 12. So what did your partner or group come up with? Why did football like have to happen in his view?
It's kind of like a way to express the like anger and stuff that they get from living the way that they do, or just like to be outside and to do something different, really.
Right, so there's a sense of kind of like pent up angst and needing to like get something out. And that suggests that like if it hadn't been football, it would have been something else. Right. And so maybe that's a good thing. Anybody else have any thoughts on that question that are a little different? Okay. So chapter 2, now in light of discussing chapter 3, you can add some elements as well. What do we learn about Steve Almond and his desire to play football as a kid? What was it that he liked about it? How about Michaela?
So he mentioned that as a child, he really liked the idea of being piled up, experiencing pain. He mentioned how he hurt his shoulder popped out of the socket, but he never stopped playing. So that idea of violence and pain kind of intrigued him to keep playing.
Good. Anything else? Yeah, so there's this sense that like if you take the violence out of football, it's not football anymore and it loses its appeal. It loses something really intrinsic and important to the sport, which should give us pause, right? Chapter 3, I have this question. So somebody, in a nutshell, describe what happened to wide receiver Darryl Stingray in 1978. And what does the author report being afraid of as a result when this scary thing happened?
He was tackled and his back broken too, and the author was scared football would just be canceled.
Yeah. And so this is a really like powerful thing to write about, right? So this person had this horrific accident on the field and was terribly injured permanently. And what's the first thing that the author, that this person at the time was afraid of? Right? Not like, oh my gosh, that's awful. What's going to happen to that person? What's going to happen to their family or something like that? But, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to my beloved sport? Right. And I think there's something very powerful about sort of admitting that, that was the first kind of reaction that he had.